But for Sam, it was like being sent away to graduate school. He learned all he needed to know from guys who knew everything. Doing a stretch for tax evasion on Sam's cell block was a talkative black convict named Eddie Jones. Eddie and his brothers were the policy kings of Chicago. The policy racket took in $180,000 a week in the black neighborhoods.
What was appealing about the policy rackets? Anybody could buy a lottery ticket. You could be the poorest man or woman in Chicago. You could pay a nickel and you buy a number. And it was everybody's dream. I'm gonna win today. It gave poor people a daily sense of hopefulness. That's why it was so popular.
The Joneses controlled the policy racket, and Sam learned all about it from Eddie. Eddie and his brothers had made a fortune and owned great estates in France and Mexico. Sam and Eddie teamed up. Sam used his pull to get Eddie better treatment, and Eddie taught Sam how his family business worked and how to memorize number combinations.
Eddie Jones was one of the three Jones brothers who were involved in the policy gambling on the south side of Chicago. There are a number of individuals, most of them, but not all of them, African American, who were running policy gambling, which by the 1930s was focused in the city's black neighborhoods, the south side and the west side. The Jones brothers were very, very successful at this.
Well, Big Ed Jones was at that period of time, he was essentially the head of the policy racket in Chicago. Now, there are probably a dozen different policy wheels, independent policy wheels, but like the outfit, they kind of unofficially would elect a titular head to represent them to the city. In other words, he would be the bag man, the payoff man to bring the money into the city.
Policy rackets is a lottery. Every day you pick a number. Usually it's 3 numbers, sometimes it's 4 or 5.
Eddie Jones said to Sam Giancana, hey, look, when we get out of here, maybe we can do some things together.
They became friends in prison, and I think maybe it's because they had a Chicago connection. I think Sam liked Eddie Jones because Eddie Jones was a gentleman. Eddie Jones had class. I think Eddie Jones talked about his criminal activities, and probably Mooney did too. And they shared some stories. And Mooney figured out a way for the outfit to make millions of dollars, which is through the policy rackets or the numbers.
When Sam got out in 1943, Chicago was still a one-boss town. Only now the boss was a guy named Anthony Accardo, a guy Sam knew very well. Like Sam, Accardo was a Capone wheel and trigger man. While Sam managed to get out of the draft by saying the words, "I steal," he did make a go at an honest living back in the envelope factory. Then Angeline got pregnant again, and Sam started thinking about ways to make his old colleague Accardo think of him as a major operator. When Eddie Jones got out of the joint, Sam was right there waiting for him. Pals in the joint, pals outside, right? Jones went for it and staked Sam to $100,000 to run one of the Jones family rackets, jukeboxes. Sam did well with the jukeboxes, for both himself and the Jones family. That's the way Sam made his first fortune. By 1945, Sam was able to move his family out of the patch and into a large house in suburban Oak Park.
I think he admired Eddie Jones, but his interest in business transcended any personal feelings he might have had about him, and he saw an opportunity for the outfit to encroach upon the policy rackets and eventually take over the policy rackets.
You'd think having some money for the first time in his life, he'd be satisfied. No. Sam wanted a seat at the table. He knew the boss of Chicago, came up the same way. But the guys around the boss all thought of him as Mooney, too crazy and unstable to run anything. He had to change that.
That was the door that was open to Sam Giancana, which Eddie Jones, I'm sure, didn't anticipate this, but Sam Giancana then, with the door partly open, levered it open by saying to the guys in the outfit, hey, maybe the outfit can come in on this and basically grab this.
He worked overtime to get an audience with Accardo and his inner circle. He offered to bring the profitable black policy wheel under outfit control. All of it. That got their attention. All he had to do was sell out the best friend he ever had. The guy that made it all possible for Sam to move his family to Oak Park. Eddie Jones.
He kidnapped Eddie Jones and brought him to the basement of a home, unknown location, and said, Eddie, you want to live? Here's what you have to do. Take this $250,000, take a train, go to Mexico. See you later. And Eddie Jones was a rational and reasonable person, and that's exactly what he did.
Sam took over the entire policy wheel, making him and the outfit rich.